Hello there and welcome back. In the previous episode we started working on our equipping system, we created these quick slots, and now we can drag items from our inventory into these slots. We can also press on the different numbers and it will select the item inside the slot. But right now there is no model appearing in our hand, so if we select the X, nothing will show on the screen. So in this episode, we're going to take care of that. We're going to create the axe model, and we're also going to add different animations to this model. And later, of course, we're also going to create other tools, but it's going to be the same way. So after you see how we do it with this axe, you can do it with other tools as well. So we want to make this axe model to appear somewhere in front of our player, right? Because we want to see the axe in front of this camera. So when we walk around, it will be in our hand. So we will click on our player. And inside the player, we're going to create a new empty object and we're going to call it tool holder, okay? And it will be at the 0, 0 position because we just want an object to hold these tools. And then we're going to instantiate the different models into this game object, okay? Now we also want to create a reference to this game object. So inside our equip system, let's open the equip system. We are going to add this reference. So public game object tool holder, okay? And we can already drag it inside. So we're going to click on our equipping system and we're going to drag the tool holder inside this slot, okay? Now back inside the equip script, we are going to go inside this select quick slot, right? Because we first select the quick slot that we want. So for example, we have an axe inside the first one, so we press on 1. So it's going to run this method with 1 inside. So inside this method, we want to display our model on the screen. We want to instantiate the model, right? We want to make it appear on the screen. So over here, if we select a new item, before we change the color, but after we get the actual object, we are going to call a method set equipped model, and we're going to pass in the selected item. And this selected item, if you remember from the previous episode, is just the game object of the item that is inside of this slot. But this item is not the model. This is just the sprite of the item, right? So if I open the inventory over here, we can see that we have this axe. So it's just the sprite of this axe. And over here, we simply get the sprite, okay? And it's useful because we have all the different scripts on it and we can also get its name, okay? So we're going to pass it inside this method and we're going to create this method over here. So private void, and there's going to be one parameter, which will be game object of the selected item, okay? Now inside, when we receive this selected item, all we want to do is to take its name, okay? String selected item name, and we're going to get this selected item name, and we're also going to do our usual parsing to get the clean name, okay, to remove the clone part. Replace clone with nothing, right? We replace the clone part with nothing. So then we get the clean name. So if we got axe clone, we're going to get axe, and we want to get the name of the item to find which model to instantiate, okay? So over here, we're going to have a game object that will be the item model, okay? It will store the actual model of the item, and it's going to store the model after we instantiate the model. So instantiate, and then we want to say resources, right? Because all these prefabs will be inside our resource folder. Load, and it's going to be a game object that we want to load. And then we also want to add this selected item name and model, and you're going to see why we do this. Model, okay? So we simply say that we want to instantiate a game object from our resource folder that is called the selected item name, so axe, but we also added underscore model, okay? And if we're going to get some other tool over here, we're simply going to find the other tool with model, okay? So this becomes a more generic method. And after we say which object we want to instantiate, we also need to specify the position that this object will be instantiated at, okay? So we say new vector 3, and also quaternion Euler. Okay, so before we fill out these parentheses over here, we're going to specify what is the position that this new object is going to be at. And over here, we simply say what is the rotation that this new object is going to be instantiated at. We also, after we instantiate the item, we get it over here. And then we also want to set the parent. So transform set parent. And the parent will be our tool holder, right? So the parent will be the tool holder, transform, and over here we say false, because over here we need to provide world position stays. So we don't want it to stay at the same world position, we want to change the world position. And here we're actually changing the world position. So let's leave this for a second. Let's go back into the editor. And inside the assets folder, inside the resources, I have this axe model. Okay, so this is just an axe model that I got from an asset pack, and it's something I found in the asset store. It simply costs $5, so it's not expensive. And of course, I could take some time and try to build these models in Blender, but I really don't have time for this. So if you want to follow along and to have the exact models, you can buy this pack and you get different items inside. And of course, this is not any kind of promotion or advertising. It's just that I want to show you what am I using, okay? So you can also create some kind of primitive axe or find some kind of free asset somewhere. It doesn't matter. I just want to show you what I'm using, okay? So I have this axe over here, and I place this axe model inside the resources. And you can see that I also gave it a name because we already have an axe. And this is the simple axe sprite that we used so far inside the inventory. It has the inventory item script, it has the drag and drop script, but this will be the actual axe model, okay? So I simply gave it the same name, underscore, model, okay? So then when it's going to go into the resource folder, it's going to look for an axe underscore model, okay? So this will be our pattern. So later when we're going to have a pickaxe or a knife, then we're going to pass in knife and we're going to give our model the name knife underscore model, okay? So my 3D model has this scale and these positions, but these positions are not important because what is important is the positions that we're going to provide it over here. Because over here, it's going to take these positions and it's going to populate the positions of our axe. So it's going to bring it inside our scene and it's going to place it over here inside the tool holder. And the position will be the positions that we provide over here. And the rotation, this rotation will be what we provide inside the quaternion. Okay, so this is just a method that deals with rotation. So for you, it's not going to be the exact numbers, only if you're actually going to use the same model and have the same scale and everything. But if not, you just need to adjust it to your own game, okay? So I'm going to instantiate it at 0.6, 0, 0.4, and I say F because it's a float, okay? And then the rotation will be 0, minus 12.5, and minus 20, okay? So it will instantiate our axe in this position, in this rotation, inside the tool holder, okay? So these positions and rotations will be relative to this tool holder. That's why this tool holder, I made it the default positions, okay? So I'm not touching the positions of the tool holder, I'm simply going to change the positions of the axe. So all you need to do is find the values that work for you so that your tool will appear in the exact position that you want to, okay? Now, after we do this, it should work, okay? So let's save this. And we already have an axe inside our inventory because I don't want to craft the axe each time to test this out. So now we're going to run the game. We're going to select the axe. We're going to press on 1. And when we press on 1, it will simply go over here. It will run this method with 1, okay? So the number will be 1. It will go over here. It will get the selected item because we passed 1 over here. So get selected item will go through this list. It will find the axe. It will return it. Over here, we're going to get the axe sprite. So then we're going to pass it inside this method. And inside this method, it will get the axe. It will get its name. And then it's going to instantiate the model according to this name, okay? And it will position the model at these coordinates. And this will be the parent, okay? So let's see how everything works. Let's run the game. So now I'm simply going to drag the axe into this first quick slot, and then I'm going to press on 1, and we can see that this axe was instantiated inside our hand. So now we can close our menu and we can walk around. Okay, so that's nice. We have our axe. And of course, now if I press on 1 again, it will keep the axe in my hand because we did not take care of that. But we have this axe in our hand, okay? So that's nice. And also over here, we can see that inside this tools holder, we already have this axe model, and it created another one because we pressed on 1 a bunch of times and we did not destroy the item. So next we need to destroy the item when we deselect it, right? Or when we select a different tool, then we simply need to destroy this game object. But we can also see over here, if we click on one of these axes, that it got the position that we specified over here, and it got the rotation that we specified over here. The scale is the scale that I set inside the model, but if you need to, you can also change the scale over here, right? So unless you need to change the size of your model when you instantiate it, there is really no reason to do that, because you can just set the scale over here inside the prefab and then just instantiate it. But you can always change the scale inside the code if you need to. I don't need to, but just know that you can do it. So now we're going to take care of all of these small things that are still not optimized with our model. For example, when it appears inside the tools holder, each time we press on one, right? And we only want to make it appear once. So let's go inside our equip system, and if we want to destroy this item model, we want to do it when we select another item, right? Or when we deselect this item. So in order to be able to destroy our item model, we need to make it a global property, okay? So we're going to just remove this game object over here, okay? And we're going to create it as a property of the class public game object item model, okay? And we are also going to change the name, so we're going to rename to selected item model, okay? So now it also changed the names over here, selected item model, and now over here, if we press on the same number again, so if we pressed on 1 and the axe model appeared in our hand, and then we press on 1 again, it should deselect the axe. So it means that we want to get rid of the axe, right? We want to put it back inside our inventory or something like that, inside our backpack, right? We just don't want to see it in our hands. So we're going to do that over here. If selected item model is not null, so if something is selected, if we have something inside this selected item model, only then destroy immediate, and we talked about immediate in the previous episodes, selected item model game object, okay? So when we select the same number, we're simply going to destroy the selected item model, okay? And after we destroy it, we also want to set the selected item model to be null. Because if we destroy it, it will just show as missing inside the inspector, but we want to make it null, okay? So we can get rid of this line, but I think it's better to just make it null eventually. And we're going to do the same thing. So let's copy this, and we're going to do it when we equip a new item. We're first going to set it to null. So if a different item was already created, we're going to destroy it and we're going to create our new item, okay? So for example, we selected the axe, then the axe was created and the selected item model became the axe, but then we select our fishing rod, so we deselect, we destroy the axe, we set it to null, and then we set the fishing rod to become the selected item model, okay? So we're going to destroy it over here and over here. So let's save this. So we press on 1, and now we have our axe in our hand. We can see that we only have one copy of this axe. And now if I press on 1 again, it will simply destroy this item, and we're not going to have the axe in our hand. Okay, so if we had another tool over here, we could also select the other tool, and then it would just destroy this tool. And then when we press on 1 again, it simply creates it again. So that's nice. Next, we're going to start animating the axe. Okay, so we want to create two main animations. The first animation will be when we just walk around with our axe, okay? If we walk around, if we stand, we just want to create some kind of idle animation for the axe, because it's more realistic to see the axe move a bit, right? When we just stand and breathe. So the axe should not be static like that. It should move a little bit. So we're going to create this idle animation, and then we're also going to create the swing animation. So when we actually swing our axe, okay? Later, we can also add some kind of running animation when we sprint, and then the axe will move even more. Maybe we can create other animations, but for now, we're going to create both of these idle and swing animations, okay? So in order to create this animation, we first need to place our axe inside the scene, because we want to see what the animation will be like, right? We don't want to first run the game. So I'm simply going to select the model, and I'm going to drag it inside the tools holder, and then it will appear inside the game. So then we can create an animation for it, and we're going to see how it looks. Now again, the keyframes and the different numbers that I'm going to give you are not going to be accurate if you're using different models, but you're simply going to have to play with this and find your own values, okay? This is not some kind of beginner's tutorial for animation, and I hope you already have some experience with animation. So we're going to select the axe model, and when it's selected, we're going to go to Window, Animation, and we're going to select Animation. So then it's going to open this animation window over here. And when this axe model is selected, we're going to create, okay? And inside our assets, we're going to create another folder, and we're going to call it Animations. So inside this animations folder, we're going to create a new animation, and we're going to call it Axe Idle. Okay. So now it created this Axe Idle, and we're going to click on Add Properties, Transform, Position, okay, and we're going to expand this position. So now we're going to copy this, Control C, and we're going to paste it in the middle, and then we're going to drag the last one to be inside this 2 minutes frame, and the middle one we're going to place at the minute, okay? So we have, well, it's not 2 minutes, it's 2 seconds, 1 second, and 0, okay? So we're only going to have these 3 different frames. So for now, all of them are the same, and the only change we're going to do is click on the middle one. We're going to select it so it's blue, okay? And over here, we're going to change the Y position to, let's say, something like that, okay? 0.06. So if we play the animation, we can see that the axe is idly swaying or moving. Maybe it's too much. Maybe we should just put it at 4. Okay, So all I did was take these frames with the positions, I copied them and pasted them in the middle. So we have one at 0 seconds, one at 1 second, and one at 2 seconds. So the first one and the last one are exactly the same. It's just the default position. But the middle one, I changed the Y position to negative 0.04. So it moves on the Y-axis a little bit. And then when we run everything together, it gets this swing animation. Now, if we run the animation, it looks smooth, but the way to make it even smoother is simply by left click and selecting the first one, and then right click and select auto, okay? And then we are going to do it with the last one. So if you have this problem that it's not looping smoothly and it just stops and goes back to the first position, then do this and it's going to fix it. So now if we run, okay, so this is for the axe idle animation. Next, we're going to create the swing animation, so it will be a bit more complicated. So we're going to select over here, create new clip, and we're going to call it axe hit. Okay, going to save it, and we're going to add property, transform position, but we're also going to add rotation, okay? Because we want to change the rotation and the position of the axe inside this animation. So we're going to copy all of this, Control C, and we're going to paste it at the 15 seconds. Okay, it's not 15 seconds, it's 15 milliseconds, and at the 30, okay? So we're going to have one at 0, one at 15, one at 30, and one at 1 minute, 1 second, okay? And I know that it's not even, but that's just the way I played with it and made it work, okay? And if you're not seeing it as seconds, you can go over here and change it. So if you see frames, we're playing with 0 frames, 15 frames, 30 frames, and 60 frames, okay? First of all, we're going to select this 15 seconds one and make sure that it's also blue when you select it, otherwise it's not going to apply everything. And over here, we're going to change the positions of the model. We're going to add 0.8 to this one. We're going to change this to 18. And we're going to change this to negative 16, okay? So first the axe goes backwards. Then we're going to click on this 30 seconds. And we're going to change it to 0.91. Okay, so now it goes backwards and then it comes forward and it makes this chop, okay? And then it goes back to the regular. So if we play it, this is the way it's going to look, okay? And of course, we can also hide this inventory screen. And also notice that our middle point, middle dot, is over here. So the axe goes to the position of this middle point, okay? So if we select the axe and we play this hit axe animation, this is how it's going to look. Again, it's not super professional. I'm not an animation artist, right? I simply played with these values and this is what I got. So all you need to do is start with your first position and then at some point change the values and then change the values again and change them again, okay? So you don't really have to do it every step. You can do just 3 or 4 steps and the animation will know where to move, okay? So over here I set it to be in the back, so it got to the back, and then it got to this position. Well, first of all, I started by creating this position, okay? I said that I wanted to be at this position at the end. So when I found this position, I simply made it to go backwards and then go to this position, and then just go to the normal position, okay? So there's no way to avoid playing with these values and find something that is working for you, okay? Now, when we're done with this, we can lower the screen and we can click on this animator over here. So if you don't see this animator over here, you can go to Window, Animation, and you're going to find this animator window. So inside this animator window, let's move this a little bit. We're going to find all of these different states, and we have both of these states for each of our animations, okay? So the idle animation will start when we run the game, and it will be like the default animation, but then we want to trigger this hit animation only at specific points, okay? We want to use our script to trigger this hit animation. So we're going to right click on this Axe Idle, we're going to make transition, and we're going to click it and connect it to the Axe Hit. Then we're going to do the same thing, but the other way around. We're going to right click, make transition, and we're going to connect it to Axe Idle. Because when this Axe Hit animation is over, we want it to go back to the idle animation, okay? We want the idle animation to always run. Now over here in the parameters, we're going to create a trigger. So we're going to click on this plus sign, trigger, and we're going to call it hit, okay? So it's basically a way to trigger this hit from our script. And then we're going to click on this transition over here, okay? The transition that goes from the idle to the hit. And over here, we're going to add a condition, okay? Because we want a condition to trigger this animation. And the condition will be this hit trigger, okay? So we're going to add, and we're going to select this hit, okay? This is the only trigger that we have. And over here, we need to do a few changes so everything looks smooth. So we're going to open these settings, and we're going to disable this has exit time. We're going to we're going to leave this fixed duration, but we're going to make this transition duration to 0, okay? So this is how it should look. Then we're going to click on the second transition, and over here we don't need any conditions because we simply want this animation to be finished, and then we want it to go back to the idle animation. So we're not going to create any condition over here, but we want to change a few things over here. So we're going to leave this has exit time. We're going to change the exit time to 1. And 1, it's because that's the length of the hit animation, okay? So 1. And over here, we can change it to something very small like 0.06, okay? These are the values that are going to make it smooth. And because we don't want this Axe hit animation to always loop, we only want it to be triggered once. We're going to go inside our projects folder, animations, and we're going to click on this Axe hit animation, and we're going to deselect this loop time, okay? Because we don't want it to loop. We want it to only run once. The idle, on the other hand, we do want it to loop, okay? So we're going to leave it this way. But the Axe hit, we're going to disable the looping. Now that we created these animations, we need to trigger them, okay? Well, trigger this hit animation. So we're going to create a new script. So let's go into our scripts folder. And this time we're going to create a script together. So create new script, and we're going to call it equipable item, okay? So this script will sit on every model that we have, okay? We could create a script for every model, for example, an axe script and then a pickaxe script, and then every tool could have its own script, but that's not efficient coding because later if we wanted to do some small change, we had to go back into all of these scripts and change them all, right? So we want to be abstract, and abstract means that we don't want to be specific. We don't want to create scripts for specific things unless we have to, okay? For example, we have this inventory item script. So instead of creating a script for the stick and a script for the stone, we just created this inventory item script, and that's an abstract script that basically contains all the other objects. So this is the way to work, because then it's going to help us maintain the code, and if we want to do some changes, we simply need to go over here and change this one script instead of changing 100 different scripts for every item, okay? So this equipable item will be a script that will go on top of all of these models, okay? So we can click on our model, but don't get confused. Don't put it on this axe model. Put it on, well, you can put it on the axe model because we're going to make it into a prefab, okay? So we're going to select this equipable item and we're going to drag it on the axe model, okay? And over here, where you see this overrides, we can click on it and apply to all, and it will basically update our prefab, okay? So if we go into the resources, we can see our axe model, and it has this equipable script, okay? So now let's open this equipable script, equipable item script. And inside we're going to add an animator, okay? Because we want each equipable item to also be animated, right? So public animator, and this will simply keep a reference to our animator component, animator. Now there's a cool thing that we can do in Unity that I never showed you. If we want to make sure that this item that has this script will always require some kind of component, we can go over this class over here and do require, well, inside require component type of animator. So now, even if we did not create this animator, it's going to require this script to supply with an animator. So if we place this script on our axe, it's going to create an animator component on our axe. Of course, we need to go over here inside the start and say animator get component animator. So we're going to get the animator that is on this axe, right? But this is just a way to make sure that this item, well, all of these items, all of these models have an animator component, okay? So later, if we have a lot of different components, we're not going to forget and then something will not work. So then when we got this reference to the animator, we're simply going into our update method. And over here, we're going to check if the player pressed on the left mouse button, okay? Because when we click on our left mouse button, we want the axe to swing, right? We want to trigger this swing animation. So over here, if input get mouse button down is 0, and 0 is basically left, okay? 0 is left, 1 is right, and 2 is it is the middle mouse button, if I'm not mistaken, okay? So 0 basically means left mouse button, okay? So if we press on the left mouse button, it's going to use this animator component, and it's going to set a trigger. Okay? And the trigger that we want to set is hit. Okay? Because over here, we created this trigger and we said that when this hit trigger is activated, then activate this hit animation. Okay? So if we click on our axe model, we can see that it already created this animator, but right now it's null, right? And it's fine because when it's going to start the game, it's going to take the animator component and it's going to place it over here. And then we're going to be able to use it, okay? So all we do inside the script is simply press on the left mouse button, and when we press on it, it's going to play this hit animation. So let's close this animator. I think we're done with it. And let's see if it works, okay? So we can keep this axe model inside our hand. Let's start the game. And we can see that our axe is idly swaying. And when we left click, it's doing this axe swing, okay? So that's cool. Right now it's clipping through the floor and through these trees, but we're going to take care of that. And that's one of the big issues many people have, is when they create all kinds of tools or weapons for a first-person game. They always have this problem that the tools are clipping through walls or through objects, and we're going to take care of that in this episode, okay? But we can see that the animation is working, and we can also go to the animator, and we can see that this idle animation is always running unless we click on the mouse, and then this axe hit animation is working. Okay? And right now, maybe you don't feel this swing effect, but in a few episodes, we're going to add sounds into our game. We're going to add music. We're going to add sound effects. So there were going to be sound effects for literally everything inside our game. When we drag items, when we open menus, when we hit, when we swing, when we walk, when we jump. So everything is going to have a sound effect. So then when we swing this axe, it's going to do a nice sound and it will feel much better. Okay, it will add a lot to our game when we're going to add these sounds. So now there's a few things that we want to take care of. For example, if we have this axe inside our hand and we want to pick up an item, we're going to allow the player to pick up an item, okay? Because we have our second hand free, right? And basically, usually in these games, you can pick up items when we have the axe. You don't have to put the axe away to pick up an item. So we do want to be able to pick up items when we have this axe in our hand. But the problem is that when we're going to click to pick up this item, it's also going to swing this axe. And it's something that we don't want to happen, because there is no real reason for a person to swing his axe when he just wants to pick up something, okay? Maybe later, swinging this axe is going to deplete stamina, right? It's going to deplete calories. So we don't want to just swing the axe each time we want to pick up a stone. So it's something we're going to take care of now. And another thing is that when our menu is open and we click on something, it also swings the axe. And that's something that we want to disable, okay? So we will go back into our equipable item script. And over here, we're simply going to add a few more conditions. So if the input is left mouse button and inventory system is open, okay? False. And crafting system instance is open, false. So if both of these menus are closed and we click on the left mouse button, only then swing the axe, okay? So this will take care of the problem that we had swinging the axe when the menus are opened. Now, to be able to disable the swing of the axe when we pick up items, we will go into our selection manager. So we did not visited this script for a long time. Over here, we're going to create a property, public bool hand is visible, and we simply want to store a boolean of when this hand UI is visible. So when this hand is visible, it means that we're about to pick up an item, so we don't want to be able to swing the axe. So inside this update method, we're going to set this hand is visible to true, right? Because over here we set it to true. And over here we set it to true. No, here is false, so we're going to set it to false. And where else? Over here we set it to false. And over here we set it to false. So here we set the actual game object to be false, right? But here we set this boolean to be false, so then we can reference this boolean from outside of this script, okay? So inside our equipable item, we can add one more condition. Selection manager instance hand is visible, false, okay? So only when all of these things are fulfilled and also the hand is visible is false. It means that we don't see the hand. It means that we want to be able to swing the axe. So after we did all of this, we can run the game again. And now when we're inside a menu, if we click, it will not swing the axe, only if we exit the menu. And when we want to pick up an item, we cannot swing the axe. So it will pick up the item, but will not swing the axe. Only then we can swing the axe, okay? Now, as I told you, we're going to take care of one very annoying thing. And the thing is that when we have this tool equipped, it simply clips through the trees, through the floor, and if we had walls, it would also clip through these walls. So the way to fix this is to play with the camera. So we're simply going to create another camera, and the second camera will only render this tool, and the main camera will not render the tool, but will render everything else. So this way, the tool will always appear in front of all the rest of the world. Okay? And this is a very popular fix that we do in games. So if you ever wondered how we fix this problem, this is the way. So we're going to do it right now. We're going to go into our main camera, right? It's inside the player. And we're going to create a new camera inside of it. Then we're going to rename this camera to equipable only or equipable only camera. Okay. And then we're going to go into the layers, add layer, and we're going to add a new layer called equipable. Okay. Then we're going to click on our camera. Well, first we're going to go into our tool holder and we're going to set it to be inside this equipable layer. Okay, yes, change children. And we also want to go to our prefab, okay, the axe model prefab, and we want to change it. Well, it already changed it over here because it changed it over here. But just make sure that the prefab is also on this equipable layer, okay? So now that this model is on the equipable layer, we want to tell the camera to only render this layer, okay? So in the main camera, we select the main camera, and over here, inside the culling mask, we're going to remove this equipable layer. So it's going to render everything except this equipable layer. But then we will go to the equipable camera, and inside the culling mask, we're going to select nothing except this equipable, okay? So it's going to only render this equipable. And we can also change this to, let's say, 1. And over here, the background type should be uninitialized, okay? And we can also set these HDR and MSSA to off. And we can also remove this audio listener because the main camera already has an audio listener. So now if we run the game and we move over here, we can see that this axe is always in front of the tree and it's always in front of the floor, and it will never clip through anything because basically we have another camera that always renders it and the main camera is not rendering it. But in reality, if we look at the scene and we move to, let's say, the player, and we move to this tree, it actually does clip through the tree, right? So in reality, the axe goes through the tree, but we are not seeing it, okay? So that's just some kind of way to take care of this problem. Now, another problem is that when we go near these trees and we look down, then we clip through them, right? Our player is clipping through these trees. So to fix this, we're going to click on our landscape, trees, and we're going to select one of these birch trees. And then over here inside the capsule collider, we're simply going to increase the radius because right now, this collider is not wide enough so we can actually come and look inside of this model. So we're simply going to go to this radius and we're going to increase it to about 1.6. Now you see that this collider became wider, and to apply it on all of the other trees and also on the prefab, we go over here, overrides, apply all, okay? So now all the trees will be with the same capsule, and if we run the game, we can no longer clip through this tree because it simply doesn't allow us to go close to the tree. Okay, and it also fits with the axe hitting the tree, okay? Of course, we also need to add some kind of effect, like maybe some kind of sparkles or some kind of wood chips flying off, right? And when we are going to have the sound effects, we're going to have some kind of hitting sound effect. So these are all the things that we had to do to make our model work, okay? Of course, right now it only swings and appears in our hand, but all of this was just a preparation for the next episode. And in the next episode, we're going to actually hit these trees. And after we hit them a few times, they're going to become logs and they're going to run some kind of animation and you're going to see it. It's going to be something cool. Again, we're not animators, usually game studios have entire departments for that, and we're just independent developers, but we're going to try to do something nice, okay? We're going to hit the tree, and the tree will become logs, and then we're going to be able to pick up these logs, and they will appear inside our inventory, and we're going to be able to use these logs to craft other things, okay? So we're going to be able to chop down all of these trees and simply craft all kinds of things with the materials, okay? So that's all for this episode. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe if you're still not subscribed. Please share this video with your friends and leave a like, and I'll see you next time.